Chapter 1. "I will never be your bride," I yelled as I spat at him. He stared at me angrily like he was about to strike me. His guards reacted before he could. 2 big men in black armor, hands gripping my arms, but I jerked away and shoved one off balance. They had brought me here by force 3 days ago, and I wasn't going to make it easy for them. I was in the market square when I heard it, the Raven call. Every year the Alpha King chose a bride, and each time the unlucky girl was never seen again. I never thought I'd be chosen. He preferred women barely grown. So when I heard the sound, I didn't even flinch, until the announcer spoke my name.
Bella Mashford.
The world seemed to freeze. People turned. I heard their whispers, shock, pity, confusion. Why her? She's too old. Poor girl. I cursed under my breath and tried to move, but the guards were already on me. Their hands were rough, their grip like iron. I kicked, screamed, even bit one of them, but it didn't matter. They threw me into the carriage like a sack of grain and slammed the door shut. The wheels started rolling before I could catch my breath. Through the small barred window, I watched the market shrink behind me. The stalls, the noise, the faces I'd never see again. The road stretched on forever. The carriage wheels rattled like bones, kicking up clouds of dust that clung to my throat. My wrists burned from the ropes, but I barely felt them anymore. I was too busy trying not to think. But silence has a way of forcing thoughts on you. The Alpha King of Black Raven was a monster in human skin, a creature who smiled while he tore people apart. He ruled through fear, through blood, through the screams of anyone foolish enough to test him. Every year, he took a new bride, barely grown girls, and each one vanished before the next spring. Some said he killed them for sport. Others said he used them in rituals, bathing in their blood to keep his strength. No one knew for certain. But everyone agreed on one thing. No one ever came back. I used to hope those were just stories, the kind people told to make cruelty sound poetic. But sitting in that carriage, wrists bound and future stolen, I knew better. He was real, and I was next. The thought made my stomach twist. He preferred girls younger than me, barely adults, they said. 18 winters, sometimes less. I was 22 winters, past his liking, past the age he usually wanted, which meant this wasn't a choice. It was punishment. That's when it hit me. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they hadn't meant me at all. They'd said Bella Mashford, but what if they'd meant Belle Mashford, my sister? She was younger, sweeter. She still believed there was light in people, that kindness could fix anything. I used to tease her for it. Now, thinking of her face, I prayed she'd never lose that softness. Most people couldn't even tell us apart. We had the same eyes, the same stubborn mouth, the same way of standing like we were ready to fight the wind. She was a mirror I'd left behind, one untouched by years of scraping through life. If this was a mistake, then it was mine to fix. If they wanted a Mashford girl, they could have me, not her. I'd already seen too much of the world to believe in happy endings, but Belle, she deserved one. I leaned back against the carriage wall and closed my eyes, letting the ache settle deep in my chest. I'd play along. I'd act scared. I'd nod and smile when they demanded obedience. I'd do whatever it took to survive long enough to find a way out. And when I did, when I finally looked that monster in the eye, I'd end him, for the girls who never came home, for the mothers who never stopped waiting, for my sister, who would still believe there was good in this world. Someone had to destroy the evil that pretended to rule it. And if that evil wore a crown, then so be it. The carriage jolted to a stop so suddenly that my head hit the wall behind me. The horses snorted and stamped, the sound of their hooves echoing against stone. When the door creaked open, cold air rushed in, sharp, heavy, and metallic. It smelled like rain and iron, like blood that had been scrubbed but never forgotten.
Out!
One of the guards barked. I stepped down, unsteady, my legs stiff from being trapped so long. The sight that greeted me stole my breath. Black Raven Fortress. It rose out of the cliffs like something carved from a nightmare. All black stone and jagged towers that clawed at the clouds. A ravine split the ground in front of it, spanned by a bridge so narrow it looked like one wrong step would drop you into forever. Torches lined the walls, their flames fighting against the wind. At the highest tower, the Alpha's banner whipped wildly, a silver raven on a field of black, wings outstretched like it was ready to strike. The guards pushed me forward across the bridge. My boots slipped on wet stone, and I caught myself on the railing. Below, the gorge roared, endless and black.
Move!
One of them snapped. I did, but I made sure to glare at every step of that fortress as if my hatred alone could burn it down. When we reached the gates, they creaked open without anyone touching them. The sound rumbled through my bones. The air on the other side felt heavier, colder, like the world itself didn't breathe here. Inside was a hall lined with torches and black banners. The raven symbol stared down from every wall. The guards marched me through corridors that all looked the same until we reached tall iron doors carved with claw marks. They opened, and there he was, the Alpha King. Castian Blackraven sat on a throne that looked carved from the same black rock as the fortress. His posture was perfect, his expression unreadable. I had expected a brute, a monster. Instead, he was composed. Every line of him controlled. His armor gleamed like water caught in moonlight. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Then I remembered who he was, and who I wasn't going to be. "I will never be your bride," I spat, the words burning my throat. He didn't even flinch. The guards tensed, but he lifted one hand and they froze. His voice, when it came, was calm.
"You have spirit. That will fade."
"I hope your crown rusts before that happens." A flicker passed through his eyes, not anger, amusement, like I was something unexpected. He rose from his throne, each step deliberate, the sound of his boots echoing through the chamber. When he stopped in front of me, the torchlight caught the faint scar running from his jaw to his neck. I hated that it made him look more human.
"You were chosen by the Raven Call,"
he said.
"That is not a mistake."
I let my face go blank, the look people use when they're deciding what to say. I couldn't let him know it was meant for my sister. He studied me a moment longer. Too close, too quiet. The air between us felt like it might shatter. Then he stepped back.
"Take her to the East Wing,"
he ordered.
"She stays there until the ceremony."
I tried to resist when they grabbed me, but his eyes held mine for one final second. There was something in them I couldn't name, not cruelty, definitely not pity. Something heavier. Something that made my pulse stutter before I could stop it. The guards dragged me out before I could read it further. Chapter 2. I woke to a knock at dawn. Pale light crept through the frost-laced window. A servant entered, a thin girl with downcast eyes, carrying a tray of food. "The king expects you to join him for breakfast," she murmured, bowing quickly. I hadn't realized kings ate breakfast. My throat was dry from sleep, and my head still swam from dreams of ravens circling the fortress towers. I washed and dressed in the simple blue gown left at my bedside. The fabric was soft, unfamiliar. It made me feel like a stranger wearing someone else's skin. The servant guided me through long halls of gray stone, each one echoing with silence. Wolves' heads were carved above doorways, and banners hung heavy from the walls, black silk embroidered with silver thread. When we entered the dining room, I almost stopped in surprise. It wasn't grand, no crown, no court. Just a long wooden table beside a hearth and one man sitting at its head. Castian looked up when I entered. He wasn't wearing armor, just a dark coat, a silver ring on his hand. and the kind of posture that made command look effortless.
Sit.
He said. His voice was calm, neither harsh nor kind, but it carried the weight of command that left no space for argument. I sat across from him. Servants filled my plate and poured warm tea before disappearing as quietly as ghosts. For a while, the only sound was the crackling fire. He ate with deliberate grace, and I could feel his eyes on me even when he wasn't looking directly. I picked at my food, more out of defiance than hunger.
You didn't sleep.
He said after a moment. I've slept worse, I replied. His gaze flicked to the chain still clasped around my wrist, a token the maids had fastened the night before.
You may remove that.
He said. I hesitated. Isn't it a rule?
It's a decoration,
He said softly.
not a rule.
Something in his tone made me obey. I unclasped the chain and set it aside. He didn't comment further, but I saw the faintest twitch at the corner of his mouth, as if I'd surprised him again. He looked more like a soldier than a king. His hands were rough, his eyes ringed faintly with exhaustion. The scar on his brow caught the light. He didn't strike me as a man who hid behind luxury or cruelty. If anything, he looked like someone burdened by it. I hated that I noticed. When the meal ended, he stood.
You will begin lessons in court etiquette this week.
He said,
The court will expect certain decorum.
Such as?
Loyalty,
He replied.
respect, honesty.
That last word twisted in my chest. Honesty was the one thing I couldn't afford, not when I was living under my sister's name. He paused at the doorway.
You have questions.
He said without turning. I swallowed. Why do you choose a bride every year? He looked over his shoulder, calm and unreadable.
Because the kingdom demands it.
That isn't an answer.
It's the only one I can give right now.
Then he was gone, leaving me with more questions than food on my plate. The rest of the day passed in strange quiet. A maid named Mira showed me the halls, the library that smelled of old ink and winter dust, the green courtyard that somehow bloomed despite the frost, the bathing chambers with their endless marble basins. Mira spoke softly, like the walls were listening. Does he ever leave the fortress? I asked.
Only when he must,
She said.
the mountain keeps him safe. The seer says it listens to him.
The mountain or the guards, I muttered. Mira gave me a wary glance but said nothing. By evening, I found myself wandering to the upper balcony. From there, the world stretched below, forests black with pines, rivers winding like silver veins, wolves pacing the cliffs. Ravens circled the towers, their cries echoing through the cold. I leaned against the railing and thought of Belle. Was she safe? Did she know what I'd done? I looked back at the towering fortress behind me, the place I was meant to call home, at least until my body became the next name whispered in fear. The torches flickered along the ramparts. Somewhere inside, Castian would be reading reports or commanding soldiers, his face as composed as stone. But one thing was certain. I would survive this. I would uncover what happened to the brides before me. And if the king was the monster everyone whispered he was, I would destroy him. The wind howled through the mountains, sharp and wild. I straightened, clutching my cloak tighter around me. You chose the wrong sister, Alpha, I whispered. And somewhere deep in the fortress, a raven screamed, as if it had heard me. Chapter 3. The palace began preparing for the ceremony long before sunset. Torches burned bright against the cold mountain air, casting flickering gold across black stone walls. Servants rushed through the corridors carrying silks and trays of silver. The fortress hummed with quiet, restrained chaos, like a living thing holding its breath. From my chamber window, I could see the storm clouds gathering above the northern peaks. They rolled in thick and dark, as if the mountain itself was angry. The air felt different, charged, restless. Even the wolves pacing the outer walls seemed uneasy. My maid, Mira, fastened the last clasp on my gown. The fabric was white, too white. Soft and sleeveless, it shimmered faintly under torchlight, embroidered with thin threads of silver that glowed like veins of moonlight. It wasn't a dress. It was an offering.
Do not tremble.
Mira whispered, though my hands were steady. I'm not trembling, I said. I'm thinking. Her eyes darted toward the door.
Then think quietly.
I caught her wrist before she left. What happens after the ceremony, Mira? To the others, the brides before me. Her face paled.
Don't ask. The mountain takes what it's owed.
Then she slipped out, leaving me with those words hanging heavy in the air. When the iron doors opened to the great hall, the noise of whispers died. Every eye turned to me. Nobles in black robes lined the aisles, advisors with rings heavy on their fingers, soldiers in silver armor. All of them watched, silent, their gazes sharp as knives. I felt their judgment in every step I took. At the far end, beneath a canopy of burning braziers, stood Castian, the Alpha King, my captor, my would-be husband. He wore a coat of deep black, its shoulders stitched with raven feathers that shimmered faintly when he moved. His hair fell slightly over his brow, and his expression was unreadable, calm but watchful. When I reached him, the seer stepped forward. Her eyes were milk white, her voice steady and ancient. She held a bowl of silver liquid that shimmered as if alive.
Blood of the moon,
She intoned.
bound to the Alpha, the guardian of the North.
Castian took my wrist. His touch was firm, not cruel, but heat rippled under my skin like a pulse that wasn't my own. The seer dipped a blade into the liquid and drew one line across both our wrists. The silver hissed where it met blood. The marks fused into a glowing crescent. The hall fell silent.
Bound
The seer whispered, her eyes lifting toward the ceiling.
until the moon chooses again.
The words sealed my fate. The feast afterward was as cold as the mountain itself. Castian said little. He sat at the head of the long table, speaking quietly to his generals, drinking from a single silver cup. I watched him carefully, waiting for weakness. The air felt thick with unspoken things. No one laughed, no music played. Even the fire seemed hesitant to crackle too loud. When he finally rose to leave, the court followed in obedient silence. Only the servants remained, clearing dishes and gathering cups. I stayed behind, feigning exhaustion but watching every move. Lisa, the head servant, the one with a scar across her thumb, lifted Castian's untouched cup and set it on a side tray near the kitchen door. That was my chance. I moved slowly, my steps quiet. When Lysa turned, I slipped a folded scrap of linen from my sleeve, a packet filled with pale dust. Not poison strong enough to kill, but enough to send him into a deep, unshakable sleep. Long enough for me to search his chambers, long enough to learn the truth. My hands didn't shake as I pressed it beneath the cup's rim. Minutes later, the tray vanished down the servants' passage toward the king's quarters. I waited. An hour passed. Then 2. No alarm, no commotion. Only the same unnatural stillness. When dawn's first light touched the mountains, I knew. Someone had found it before it reached him.
His Majesty wishes to see you.
Lisa said that morning, her voice too flat, her eyes too knowing. They led me to a study lined with old books and maps of the northern borders. Castian stood by the window, the pale light cutting sharp across his features. His cloak lay folded on a chair. His sleeves were rolled, veins visible beneath the scars on his forearms. He looked more like a soldier than a ruler. He turned when I entered.
The cup you tampered with.
He said. His tone was calm. Too calm.
It was intercepted.
I said nothing.
I should have you executed.
He went on.
Poisoning a king. Even in thought is treason.
His voice softened.
But I won't.
My throat tightened. Why not?
Because I want to know what kind of woman you are.
He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming.
You risked your life for a story you barely understand. Either you are brave or a fool.
I did what anyone would do, I said, even though my voice trembled. You take women and they vanish. Should I have waited to be next? Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger, not guilt. Something sadder. He looked away for a moment, as though the weight of ghosts hung behind my words.
You are not what they were,
He said quietly. Then he turned his back to me.
You may go.
I didn't thank him. I left, pulse thundering in my ears. That night I lay awake staring at the faint crescent on my wrist. It pulsed faintly, a whisper beneath the skin. His words echoed in my mind. You are not what they were. He hadn't denied what happened to them, only that I was different, and that meant something I needed to understand. Chapter 4. The days that followed stretched like fog, silent, tense, unending. Guards shadowed me now, the servants spoke less, and though no one mentioned the attempted poisoning again, I could feel the shift in the air. The palace had closed in around me, but with stillness came clarity. I began to notice things I hadn't before. Every morning, baskets of bread and medicine left the kitchens for the lower villages. Soldiers who returned wounded from the border were tended by the king himself, not by healers. I saw him kneeling beside one such man, hands pressed over a bloodied wound, whispering something low and fierce. When he lifted his palms, the bleeding had stopped. It wasn't human magic. It was something older, something that belonged to the mountain. Later that week, I found him in the courtyard again. A wolf pup lay limp in the snow, its leg twisted unnaturally. Castian knelt, murmuring words I didn't recognize. Light gathered beneath his hands, pale, soft, alive. When he lifted them, the pup limped a few steps, then bounded away as though it had never been broken. He looked up at me, watching from the archway.
Curiosity will get you killed here,
He said, though there was no anger in his tone. You heal wolves now? I asked, stepping closer.
I heal what's mine to protect.
He replied. The words stayed with me long after he left. That night, I listed every reason I should hate him. He had stolen me from my life. He had bound me to a curse. He ruled through fear. But each reason cracked when I remembered the way his hands had glowed over that pup, or the quiet way he watched the sunrise from the tower balcony, as if trying to remember what light felt like. I began asking questions in the servants' hall. Most turned pale at the mention of the brides. One older maid, her voice trembling, whispered,
We don't speak of them. The seer forbids it.
Why? I pressed.
Because speaking wakes what sleeps beneath.
She said, and hurried away. The words lodged in my chest like splinters. At supper 2 nights later, I finally faced Castian again. The table was long, but we were the only 2 seated. The firelight threw shifting patterns across his face. Tell me about them, I said. The others. The brides before me. He set down his cup. His gaze held mine for a long, unbearable moment. Then he said,
You wouldn't believe me.
Try me. He leaned back slightly, the firelight catching the scar along his jaw.
They died because of me. Yes, but not in the way you think.
My stomach turned. What does that mean?
It means there are worse things than kings,
He said softly.
and some of us are merely the ones standing between them and you.
The weight of his words hit harder than any blade. He rose from the table and left, leaving his cup half full, the wine dark as blood. That night, the wind howled through the mountains like a warning. I dreamed of wolves tearing at shadows, and of a king bleeding beneath a moon that would not set. When I woke, thunder rumbled, though the sky was clear. The walls trembled. Servants whispered that the Alpha had locked himself in the war room, that the seer had been summoned, that something ancient had stirred in the north. I went to the window. The horizon glowed faintly red, and the air tasted like iron. The stories had always been tangled, half truth, half nightmare, but now I understood one thing for certain. The man I had sworn to kill was not the monster the kingdom feared. He was its shield, and that shield was cracking. Chapter 5. 3 days passed before I saw him again. The fortress had changed. It felt heavier, like the air itself had grown thick with unease. The guards no longer spoke in the corridors. Wolves paced the upper balconies, snarling at nothing. Even the torches seemed to burn weaker, their flames flickering blue at the edges. Something was coming. Everyone felt it. On the 4th morning, a knock startled me from restless sleep. It was Marin, the steward, a man whose expression never moved from neutral. He held a folded parchment sealed with the royal crest.
His Majesty asks that you read this,
he said. My stomach sank. I broke the seal, expecting an order. Instead, I found a letter from my village registrar. The ink was still fresh. At the bottom, I saw my sister's name. Belle Mashford. Age, 18. Sister, Bella Mashford, 22. Beneath that, the registrar's script read, "A clerical error has been reported." The younger daughter was meant for selection. The world tilted. My vision blurred as the words burned into my mind. Someone had discovered the truth. Who sent this? I demanded.
The courier.
Marin said.
The king has already read it.
He stepped aside, and there he was, Castian, standing in the doorway, eyes unreadable. The servants withdrew, leaving us alone in a silence that felt sharp enough to cut.
Why didn't you tell me?
He asked. His tone wasn't cold. It was restrained, like he was holding something dangerous inside. Because my sister wouldn't survive this, I said. She's gentle. She still believes in kindness. You would have destroyed her.
You took her place.
His voice dropped lower.
You don't understand what you've done.
I saved her, I snapped. Something flashed behind his eyes, bright and fierce.
You think this is about sacrifice? About blood for a crown?
Isn't it? I demanded. Every bride before me disappears. He stepped forward, his presence filling the room.
They disappear because they die trying to protect you.
The words struck like a blow. I stared at him, heart pounding. Protect me? From what? He turned away, pacing once before stopping beside the window. His hands clenched at his sides.
The bond demands balance,
he said finally.
Each alpha is tied to a force older than our kind. The Blythe. When the balance fails, it consumes the bride's life to sleep again. Each death buys us one more year of peace.
He turned toward me, his expression carved from exhaustion.
Your sister would not have survived the bond. Neither should you.
Then why am I still alive? I whispered.
Because you broke the pattern.
He moved closer, his voice roughening.
The prophecy spoke of one who would bring confusion to the curse. A face young, a soul old. You were never meant to be chosen, but when you took her place, the Blythe accepted you anyway. Now it doesn't know what to do with you.
The howling, I murmured. The storms. The wolves. He nodded.
The curse is restless. You've awakened it too soon.
My knees threatened to give way. I pressed a hand to the desk for balance. So I've doomed your entire kingdom.
No,
he said softly.
You were trying to save your sister. That's what makes you different.
He met my gaze then, and for the first time, I saw something raw in his eyes. Not power, not pride, but fear.
Help me stop it,
he said quietly.
before it kills us all.
The days that followed blurred into sleepless hours. Everywhere I went, I felt the change. The mountain groaned at night, the walls shuddered, and whispers rode the wind. Servants prayed silently when they passed the temple stairs. I didn't know if it was guilt or duty that kept me awake, but I couldn't forget his words. Help me stop it. At dusk, the summons came. Chapter 6. The temple lay deep beneath the palace, carved into the mountain's heart. I followed Castian down a spiral staircase lit by blue torches. The deeper we went, the colder the air became, until my breath came out in clouds. The chamber at the bottom was vast, its walls carved with ancient runes that glowed faintly, pulsing like veins under skin. The floor was a perfect circle of silver inlay, filled with markings that looked both beautiful and terrible.
This is where it began,
Castian said. His voice echoed softly.
where my bloodline first bound the Blythe.
He set the torch in its bracket and turned toward me.
Before my reign, before even my grandfather's, there was an alpha named Valric. He wanted eternal strength. He found something beneath this mountain, a shadow that called itself Blythe. It gave him power, but it demanded balance. To contain it, each generation was forced to forge a bond with a chosen bride.
He looked down at the glowing circle beneath our feet.
Her life became the vessel that kept it chained.
I felt sick. You mean every bride?
Was the prison.
He said quietly.
Their souls burned away to keep this kingdom from falling to madness, and each time they died, the curse grew hungrier.
He stepped into the center of the sigil.
The seer listens for the Blythe's call and names the next sacrifice. I never choose them. I only carry the weight after.
The truth settled between us like ash. I swallowed hard. Then why me? Why someone older? He met my gaze.
Because you came instead of her. You changed the rhythm of the curse. The Blythe doesn't know how to feed on you. It's confused. And that confusion makes it dangerous.
The blue light wavered across his face, softening the sharp lines of it. For the first time, he looked almost human. So what happens when it wakes fully? I asked. He hesitated.
The same thing that always happens. Wolves will turn rabid. The skies will darken. It will feast until I bind it again.
I stepped closer. Bind it how? His expression hardened.
Through you.
I froze. You said it can't feed on me,
That's why you matter.
he said.
You can end it.
He began to pace slowly, his voice gaining quiet intensity.
The seer believes that if the bond is forged willingly, through love, not fear, the Blythe will consume itself. It cannot survive in purity. The curse thrives on dread, on despair. It dies in its opposite.
I laughed bitterly. Love? You think I'll fall in love with the man who dragged me here? His gaze met mine, calm but unflinching.
No. I think you'll choose to live. And that will be enough.
We stood in silence, the faint hum of the sigils filling the air. The mark on my wrist began to pulse, slow, steady, responding to his heartbeat like an echo. I hated that it made my chest ache. You're still the man who stole me from my home, I said quietly.
And you're still the woman who tried to poison me.
He answered. A faint, dangerous smile flickered between us. Something fragile shifted in the air, neither peace nor surrender, but recognition, the first crack in the wall we had both built. When I turned to leave, he didn't stop me, but I could feel his gaze follow me until the heavy doors closed behind me. The days that followed blurred again into stormlight and whispers. The kingdom was unraveling. Wolves slaughtered livestock without reason. Children were born under black moons. Rivers froze in midsummer. The Blythe was waking. From the tower window, I watched Castian command his soldiers, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. His calm had become a mask, one that cracked when no one was looking. He was fighting the mountain itself, and losing. When the council meeting ended that night, he lingered by the fire. I stepped into the hall before I could stop myself. "Tell me the truth," I said. "How long until it wakes fully?" He didn't turn.
It already has.
My breath caught. "Then what happens now?"
The same thing it always does.
He said quietly.
It feeds. Until I bind it again.
"Bind it to who?" He turned then, eyes catching the firelight.
You.
I took a step back. "You said it can't feed on me."
That's what makes you different.
His voice rose for the first time, sharp with desperation.
You can end it. The seer says your soul can withstand the curse, but only if you choose it willingly. The bond can't be forced. It has to be your choice.
"You're asking me to die," I whispered.
I'm asking you to save everything,
He paused.
and I'll stand with you when you do.
"Why?" I demanded. "Why not just find someone else?" He was silent for a long moment. Then,
Because there isn't anyone else. The Blythe marked you. It responds when you breathe near me, when you walk through these halls. You feel it too, don't you?
the mark on my wrist throbbed in answer. I couldn't deny it. "Even if I do this," I said, "how do I know you won't just replace me if it fails?"
Because there won't be anything left to replace.
His voice broke on the last word. I turned toward the window. The storm was building outside, thunder crawling down the mountain. "You're a fool," I said softly. "But maybe I am too." When I looked back, he smiled faintly for the first time.
Then maybe we'll finally be the right kind of fools.
That night, I couldn't sleep. The air in my room pulsed with the same energy that lived in the mountain below. I stared at the mirror, tracing the faint crescent mark on my wrist as it glowed faintly with each heartbeat. The bond wasn't just magic. It was alive, breathing through me, waiting. I didn't realize I'd left my room until I was halfway through the corridor, bare feet silent on the stone. The wind whispered through the cracks like distant voices. I found him in the courtyard, kneeling shirtless beside the runes carved into the floor. The scars across his back caught the moonlight. He looked like a man carved from the same stone that surrounded him, ancient, weary, and still unbroken. He didn't look up when he spoke.
You should be asleep.
"So should you." He rose, turning slowly. His eyes weren't cold this time. They were tired and honest.
I was hoping you'd come.
He said. I swallowed. "Tell me how to end it." He stepped closer.
You already know. The Alpha gives his strength. The bride gives her life. But if we share it, if we truly bond, it could consume the curse instead of us.
"And if it doesn't?"
Then the kingdom dies anyway.
He said simply.
At least this way. We try.
I took one step closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his skin. "You're really not giving me much of a choice." He smiled faintly.
You always have a choice.
When he reached for my hand, I didn't pull away. Chapter 7. The night before the ritual, the fortress refused to sleep. The storm outside clawed at the windows, tearing at banners and howling through the towers like a living thing. Every torch burned low, the flames bending as if pushed by unseen hands. The wolves below the cliffs cried in eerie unison, and the sound echoed across the stone until the whole mountain seemed to tremble. I stood by my window, my reflection ghostly in the glass. The crescent mark on my wrist pulsed brighter than ever, white, not silver now. The Blythe was close. I could feel it watching through the dark. When Castian came to my chamber, I wasn't surprised. He didn't wear armor or his crown, only a black tunic and gloves, his hair damp from the storm. He looked almost human, except for the faint glow in his eyes, power straining beneath the surface, barely contained.
It's time.
He said. I nodded, though my body wanted to run. We descended through the palace in silence, torches flickering as we passed. Every flame leaned toward him, as if drawn to the Alpha's power. The closer we came to the mountain's heart, the stronger the air hummed. The seer waited at the bottom of the spiral stairs. She stood before the ancient doors of the temple, her white eyes glowing faintly. Her voice was barely above a whisper, yet it carried through the air like thunder.
The curse stirs. The blithe hungers. If you falter, there will be no dawn.
Castian didn't answer. He simply took my hand and led me inside. The temple looked different now. The runes that had once glowed faint blue now blazed white-hot, pulsing like a heartbeat. The air shimmered with energy so thick it felt alive. Wind swirled through the chamber, though there were no windows. At the center, the sigil circle pulsed, breathing, waiting. Castian turned to me.
Are you afraid?
Yes, I admitted.
So am I.
The honesty in his voice disarmed me. I met his eyes and found not the Alpha King, not the cold ruler I'd sworn to destroy, but a man who was just as trapped by this curse as I was. He squeezed my hand once, then stepped into the circle. The light flared around him. The seer began to chant, words older than language. The air cracked with power. I followed him into the circle, the sigils beneath my feet searing cold, then burning hot. When the seer raised the ceremonial blade, my pulse quickened. She cut his palm first, then mine. Blood met blood, falling in thin streams onto the glowing runes.
The bond demands truth,
The seer intoned.
Speak it now, or the blithe will take what it pleases.
Castian's voice was steady.
I have ruled through fear. I have killed in the name of duty. But tonight, I kneel before something greater than either.
Then his gaze met mine.
You have every reason to hate me. Yet you stand here. That is enough.
I swallowed hard. My voice trembled. I don't forgive you. But I understand now. You weren't the monster, just the man who kept one from breaking free. And if I must die to end it, then so be it. The seer's eyes rolled white. The temple walls shuddered. The runes flared blindingly bright.
Blood for blood. Soul for soul. Let the curse see its mirror.
The floor split. From the fissure rose a black mist, thick and writhing. It crawled across the silver circle, whispering in voices that weren't human. Faces formed in the smoke. Women's faces, the brides who had come before. Their mouths moved soundlessly, eyes hollow with sorrow. Then a deeper voice boomed from within the darkness. We hunger, the blithe. It came like a storm, shadows lashing out, wind whipping through my hair. The light in the runes dimmed as the blackness swallowed them. My heart pounded. The mark on my wrist flared white, searing pain up my arm. Castian caught me as my knees buckled.
Stay with me,
He said, gripping my shoulders. His blood smeared across my skin, mixing with mine. The marks on our wrists burned brighter, merging into one light. The blithe screamed. It wasn't just a sound. It was 1,000 voices, all wailing at once. It poured its darkness toward me, tendrils of shadow striking like lightning. Pain ripped through my body. My vision blurred. I felt it trying to dig inside me, searching for fear. But something inside me broke open, not in surrender. Something older, wilder. A warmth surged through my chest, white and fierce. Every memory of my sister, every laugh we shared, every time I protected her, every moment I refused to kneel, they all rose like fire. Chapter 8. Weeks passed before anyone truly believed the curse was gone. The mountain grew quiet. The wolves stopped howling at night. Villages that had once lived in shadow began to light fires again. The ravens, symbols of death for generations, vanished from the skies. Everywhere I went, people stared at me as if unsure whether I was real. Some knelt, some wept. I didn't know what to do with their reverence. I wasn't a savior. I was just the girl who had refused to let another girl die in her place. Castian ruled differently now. He dismantled the old rituals. The seer retired to the temple, her chants replaced by silence. The palace gates opened for the first time in a century. Still, I could not sleep. Some nights I'd wake and reach for the mark on my wrist, half expecting it to glow again. But it remained only a faint scar, proof of what we'd survived. One morning, the council summoned us to the balcony overlooking the courtyard. Below, hundreds of people had gathered, wolves and humans alike, their voices echoing through the valley. They chanted the Alpha's name, then mine. When I stepped out beside Castian, the crowd erupted. Flowers rained from the walls. The sound of relief, of rebirth, rolled across the stone. He looked at me then, the corners of his mouth softening.
They call you Queen now.
I shook my head. I was never meant for a crown,
Neither was I.
he said quietly. We stood side by side, the wind carrying the last of the storm's chill. His hand brushed mine, tentative. I didn't pull away. Do you ever think about them? I asked. The brides before me?
Every day.
He said. His voice broke faintly.
And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure no one ever takes their place again.
I leaned into him, resting my head on his shoulder. You're still the most infuriating man I've ever met. He smiled against my hair.
And you're still the bravest woman I've ever known.
That night, I stood alone on the balcony while he slept. The moon hung high, silver and soft. The wind whispered through the mountains, no longer cold. I closed my eyes and thought I heard faint laughter, a sound that wasn't mine or his, but theirs. The lost brides. I whispered into the night, "You can rest now." And for the first time since the Raven Call, the world answered with silence. Epilogue. The kingdom of Black Raven healed slowly, as all wounded things do. Years later, travelers who crossed the northern passes would tell stories of an Alpha King who defied a curse, and the woman who broke it. Of a fortress once feared, now open to light. They said the mountain no longer whispered. But sometimes when the wind rose just before dawn, it carried the faint cry of a raven, silver, not black. A reminder that even broken things remember. Chapter 8. Weeks passed before anyone truly believed the curse was gone. The mountain grew quiet. The wolves stopped howling at night. Villages that had once lived in shadow began to light fires again. The ravens, symbols of death for generations, vanished from the skies. Everywhere I went, people stared at me as if unsure whether I was real. Some knelt, some wept. I didn't know what to do with their reverence. I wasn't a savior. I was just the girl who had refused to let another girl die in her place. Castian ruled differently now. He dismantled the old rituals. The seer retired to the temple, her chants replaced by silence. The palace gates opened for the first time in a century. Still, I could not sleep. Some nights I'd wake and reach for the mark on my wrist, half expecting it to glow again. But it remained only a faint scar, proof of what we'd survived. One morning, the council summoned us to the balcony overlooking the courtyard. Below, hundreds of people had gathered, wolves and humans alike, their voices echoing through the valley. They chanted the Alpha's name, then mine. When I stepped out beside Castian, the crowd erupted. Flowers rained from the walls. The sound of relief, of rebirth, rolled across the stone. He looked at me then, the corners of his mouth softening.
They call you Queen now.
I shook my head. I was never meant for a crown,
Neither was I.
he said quietly. We stood side by side, the wind carrying the last of the storm's chill. His hand brushed mine, tentative. I didn't pull away. Do you ever think about them? I asked. The brides before me?
Every day.
He said. His voice broke faintly.
And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure no one ever takes their place again.
I leaned into him, resting my head on his shoulder. You're still the most infuriating man I've ever met. He smiled against my hair.
And you're still the bravest woman I've ever known.
That night, I stood alone on the balcony while he slept. The moon hung high, silver and soft. The wind whispered through the mountains, no longer cold. I closed my eyes and thought I heard faint laughter, a sound that wasn't mine or his, but theirs, the lost bride's. I whispered into the night, "You can rest now." And for the first time since the Raven Call, the world answered with silence. Epilogue. The kingdom of Black Raven healed slowly, as all wounded things do. Years later, travelers who crossed the northern passes would tell stories of an Alpha King who defied a curse, and the woman who broke it. Of a fortress once feared, now open to light. They said the mountain no longer whispered. But sometimes, when the wind rose just before dawn, it carried the faint cry of a raven. Silver, not black. A reminder that even broken things remember. And in the halls of Black Raven, beneath a banner no longer dark, the Alpha King and his queen stood side by side. No longer ruler and sacrifice, but survivors.